Hello, fellow souls. Today we're going to paint a blue rose. I called it a soulful blue rose because for me the color blue is very soulful. Roses, of course, also. I love roses. I love all kinds of flowers, and I don't know about you, but I feel humanity has to go a bit more into nature, come back to their nature and nature. The nature of Mama Gaia, of Mother Earth, and just stop and smell the flowers, smell the roses, appreciate the trees, appreciate really just simple things, the blades of grass swirling or swaying in the wind, and leaves swirling on the floor, leaves greeting you with their wavy motion on the trees, and birds singing their song, all these kinds of super poetic things that that you don't really get to experience in a city or in a landscape that is not attuned to nature, let's say. It doesn't even have to be that you're living in a city space or an area where there's not a lot of nature, but even in areas where there is access to nature, I noticed that a lot of people don't appreciate it as much as nature wants to be appreciated, or as much as it would be needed. There's no shoots, of course. It's a very I know it sounds very woo-woo. There's no shoots. Everything unfolds according to its own timing and its own will. But I do think, in some sense, this is true, especially when it comes to reconnecting with nature. It's not that we should, but it's more like that we intrinsically need to reconnect with the beauty of nature and the inherent life-affirming energy. And so I decided to, paint a little painting relating to that mindset, to that worldview. But it's of course painting in every type of art process and creative process, and it doesn't have to be art making, can be anything, like I continually say, and it's probably boring at this point to repeat it that often, but it doesn't matter which process. In most processes there is some form of creativity involved, and with the processes where there's no creativity but just replication, or just boring bureaucratic processes involved, and there's no creative dynamics incorporated, this is usually things that are not, they don't fill your heart. Let's just say they don't fill your heart with joy. But making art, at least for me, definitely does, and I hope also for you watching it, watching these little paintings unfold in real time, and as well also in a more speed up version, in a more fast forwarded way, like now, because I don't want to extend the videos too much. I mean, let me know in the comments what you think, what you prefer. Is it like more these really long videos, like 1.5 hours or an hour long at least, where you see the process mostly in its slow form, in its real-time form, or these speed-up versions? I prefer, honestly, these speed-up forms, or the mixtures. Like here, I'm also mixing the normal speed with the fast-forwarded speed, because I think it's a nice balance. It looks funny to me also sometimes when things are fast forwarded, especially when you have some music playing in your head while you watch these images twirl around. But yeah, so this is not a conscious process, of course, or not a process where you sit down and you're like, okay, I want to honor nature by painting a rose like that, or I want to honor Mother Nature by painting a mountain. Sure, it's conscious on some level, but it's not like you seek out to only do that. It just comes during the process. It's like you realize, oh, this is an appreciation of what you feel most drawn to, or what you feel most inspired by. And for me, it sounds super cliched, but it's for most artists, I think. Nature is just the primary source of inspiration. Sure, it's people, it's other people, it's your friends, it's your family, it's emotions. Emotions are a huge propellant, but usually the emotions are not the inspirational source. They are like a driving force. They are like this passionate fire igniting inside of you that keeps you going, that pushes you through all kinds of times and all kinds of restrictions and confinements. May they be mind-based, created from your mind, from your psyche, or may they be really exterior confines that are put onto you, Like, and we artists, usually we free ourselves in the process of making art repeatedly. It's a process of repeatedly freeing yourself and showing yourself, yes, I am able to achieve this state of being. I'm able to achieve this this sense of accomplishment during the process, but also this sense of freedom during the process, where you don't feel bound by any rules or any books or any intellectual things. Like, art is the most unintellectual thing you can come up with, in my humble opinion, and at the same time it's super cerebral. Like, every brush stroke is of course a choice, a deliberate choice. But here, that's a good example. Now we're talking about this because here in the beginning you see these random brush strokes. This is deliberately like trying to switch off your brain. Still, I'm thinking, okay, this direction, this amount of pressure, this color, and all kinds of things. But you try to loosen it up, especially when making the foundation, when you prime the canvas. That's a lot of fun, actually. Even if it's just one color or a few shades of color, like you see here, this orange, this nice bright orange hue, like imitating a sunset, or I don't know. It was not really a conscious decision to depict any specific type of scene or mood with the background. It was just like, oh, I like this color, I feel drawn to this color now, and let's make a painting based on this complementary color style, where you have, okay, orange, then on top of the orange is of course a blue rose, things like that, where you have the most amount of contrast without being too striking, too shrill to the eye, if that makes sense. Shrill is probably some term that's only relating to sounds, but for me that makes sense, like, to describe it like this. It's almost like if a sound is too bright, too shrill, and too extreme, and too loud in intensity. The same can be true with colors. Of course, never that intense as with sounds. Maybe not. Maybe there's some argument against it, but yeah, there's definitely some interesting and intense contrasts that you can achieve with complementary colors. And I wanted to balance that out without making it, like I said, too extreme. Still pleasing to the eye, still very harmonious, and very, like, giving you this sense of, this is nice. This gives me a good sense, a good feeling in the chest. This is capturing nature, but not with all its intricacies. More like, okay, this is a more free form version. And this painting was actually inspired by a tutorial from what is it called? I should have looked it up before. Typically, I forgot it. It's from a show called The Beauty of Painting. So it's almost like the show was inspired by Bob Ross' painting show, The Joy of Painting, but this one is called The Beauty of Painting, and it was also aired on the channel PBS TV channel. I don't know, it's an American channel, so I never was exposed to that, but I saw it on YouTube some days ago, and I was like, wow, the way this guy teaches is so nice, this is so cool. And he's really, you can tell he's an old master, and within half an hour he paints a beautiful floral scene, and this is very similar to what he painted. So this is definitely strongly inspired by that, but I changed the colors, I switched up the color combination, and a little bit changing the composition, and put my own twist to it. I think every art piece is unique, no matter what you do. Even if you would try to deliberately imitate someone, which I'm not here, by the way. It's just I really love the technique, the way he painted the leaves so quickly. Within 5 seconds, he had a perfect leaf. I, of course, am not that quick, but that was so inspiring. Something really lifted up inside of me and was like this. The inner child came through and was like, "Yes, you have to try this. This is amazing. You don't have to sit, for days and days on just painting a few leaves that you might not even be happy with, but you can do it within a few seconds or minutes." And then still change something. You can still the painting, when it's finished at the end, you will see you can still add a lot more things. But I was just thinking, okay, let's not overdo it. I'm happy with it. I was actually honestly pleased with it and proud of myself after finishing it, which is very rare. But maybe it becomes more common these days. I hope so. And then I was like, okay, let's step away. Let's not overdo it. Let's just leave it like that. And that's such an interesting concept because it's usually you want to put in more details and you want to work on it and refine it and do as much as you can so it really gets as close to what you imagine or what your vision is. But in this case, I didn't have a super clear vision. I just knew, okay, this is what I want to do. I enjoy the process, and if the outcome is decent, I'm already happy with it. So I didn't put too much pressure on myself, which also was the reason probably why I enjoyed it so much. But sometimes that's a bit difficult, of course, to balance, and you do have a very specific thing in mind, and when it doesn't get close to that, you're just getting frustrated, and it's a process of repeating and making little mistakes and learning from them. But it's not a mistake, it's not an error, as long as we can still be fueled by the process, I think. And if we can see these little mistakes as opportunities to go inside and say, hey, actually, what emotion does this trigger? Why am I so frustrated by this? Is it really that important? I mean, it is important for artists, of course. Art is life, literally. As if you don't make art, you die. That's simple. It sounds extreme, I know, but it's like if it's not a physical death, then it's a psychological death or a death of the heart, because your heart longs for it, right? And if you are passionate about something, whatever it is, I would be really curious for the people watching here. You can share your story. You can share yourself. You can explore what your true passion, what your true heart's desires are, and you can share that with the world and inspire others. That's what it's all about. I will repeatedly say that, and I'm not getting tired of saying that, because I think that's really what matters the most. It's like that you inspire yourself, that you inspire others, and that you uplift yourself and others through the act of creation, through the process of creating beautiful stuff, through being life affirming and the force of positivity and light, especially in times of darkness, especially in times of collective depression and, excuse me, just have to drink a sip of water, in times of, where everything seems bleak and the future doesn't look good, and whatever, economically and ecologically and socially, socio-politically, whatever. I don't watch the news. There, I said it. I don't watch the news. I'm a peripheral news watcher, in the sense that I always get the news from family and friends, and I'm of course I'm reading headlines and things like that, but I'm never going too deep into any news articles, or I'm definitely not watching any videos about what terrible things are going on in the world, because I hear it anyway. The information will be transported to me in some form, in one form or another, and people might be shocked around me, like, what, you're not watching the news? What is wrong with you? Actually, I think it's a good thing. It's more, there's something really depressing and really heavy about it if you know about every little thing in the world, and it's also not essential. There's this argument, of course, with you have to be in the know. You don't even know what's going on around you. You're living under a rock and things like that, and that's a bad thing. And that's also a dangerous thing. And I would argue against it, because it's not a dangerous thing unless there's something directly outside your door, something happening. Of course, certain broad strokes you have to be in the know about, and to each their own preference, whatever. Some people really love the news, but without going into any ranting territory, I just want to say, I don't appreciate the news, I don't appreciate watching the news, and I will not. So I'd rather focus on this, you know. I'd rather make a lovely little painting, even if it's just, you know, seen by a handful of people. That's already something positive, I feel like, to send out into the world, and way more inspiring than a lot of things that are played on public television. Okay, so the background is this orangey, sunset kind of flare, and in front you can see these vines and leaves going in all directions, and that's very similar to what the lovely old master painter on The Beauty of Oil Painting on the TV show. You can research it on YouTube. Also did, and that really inspired me. And I thought, like, wow, this is actually, I wouldn't say more, but it's at least equally fun as painting nature scenes, like in the Bob Rossian style, with mountains and trees and you know, hills and grass, juicy sceneries, basically, with rivers and things like that. I think floral depictions are some of the most wholesome, some of the most timeless and lovely, motifs that you can choose. And we actually have in our friends group, in our friends from our family, you could say, lovely floral painters. They are really good at what they, you know, they're really good at this traditional oil painting style. This, by the way, is not oil, although it actually felt like it while painting with it, because I used this acrylic drying medium, this acrylic, what is it called, by Winsor & Newton, of course, again. Slow drying medium, retardeur fluide in French. There you go, I got some French again. And that's really cool. That's basically just some jelly structure, some transparent gel that you mix in, and you can mix it in 1-to-1 ratio with the colors, and it extends the drying time. It slows down the drying for about twice the amount, maybe even longer. I felt it's a bit longer, and I didn't use a lot of it, especially for the background. I wanted it to be quickly dried. But for some parts of the leaf and some parts of the rose later on, I definitely used it, and I think it's very handy. It's really cool. So I can only recommend it. And I also used the Galleria acrylics, also by Winsor & Newton. Really lovely set. I made an unboxing video, but I just remembered I forgot to put it in the edit. Maybe I'll do that afterwards. Let's see. And yeah, this really gave me the feeling of, oh cool, I can achieve this sense of it's oil. Even it looks even a little bit like oil paints, because I blended so much. Also the background, I just went back and forth and made these crossed strokes, and that just gave it a feeling of okay, this might be oil, this might be acrylics, I'm not sure. Of course, experts really know it immediately, but for me, just also it looked very much like oil colors. Really cool. And also what I realized with this painting is to leave some brush strokes deliberately seeing through. Even when you are quite far away, you can see, oh, there are some brush strokes. This is made by hand. This is not super perfectly blended or anything. Also in the background with that little highlight, that was so satisfying when I put in that little highlight, that little white spot, and you see the brush stroke. I didn't went over it like 10 times, so it's blended in with the background again, but I left it there, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit of new territory for me, because I usually overdo things. I have a tendency with overdoing things on certain stages, but then stopping a little bit too early. And if I would just continue, then it would be better. Or if I didn't overdo it in some middle stage, then it would have been even a little bit more satisfying, you know. But I'm learning. Everyone is learning, and it's all a journey. And I hope you enjoy this journey. And by the way, if you enjoy this journey, if you are not tired of seeing a painting of leaves and flowers. And if you enjoy my content, then please leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I'm definitely trying to be consistent with these videos. It's not easy. It sounds easy, like it's just a few hours of recording and then editing and uploading, but it takes quite a lot of time. Just editing this video, the previous one with the mountain painting, oh god, that took me days. Because I had to edit out so many things in between. I was twisting and turning constantly around and stopping and getting up, and it was 3 days of interrupted painting. This one was way nicer because it was done in one session basically. I just stopped in between to eat something, but within 2.5 hours I had the painting finished, and that also only works really well if you use acrylics or you use the wet on wet technique with oil paints. So I think I'm definitely gonna incorporate more acrylics in the future also. I got another painting started here, sitting right next to me on the left while I'm recording this, which is something I'm gonna continue after this is uploaded. And yeah, I really enjoyed. And anyway, what did I want to say? I started some thought and then I forgot it. Typical ADHD mind, right? Yeah, with this depiction is not, yes, you have conscious decisions when you say, okay, I want to honor this person, or I want to honor Mother Nature, I want to honor I don't know, my dog, my cat, by painting that person or that cat or that nature scene. Maybe you really love a certain place, you always go hiking and you just want to honor that place by painting it. Sure, that's a conscious decision, but unless or not unless, but after that conscious decision, when you start the process, it's not that much about any cerebral very specific intellectual thought patterns. It's more like, okay, how do colors harmonize with each other? How do I feel about this color? How do I feel about that shape? What is the overall big picture that I want to tell or want to show, and what story do I want to tell? There's always this storytelling element, I feel, with everything that you do. Writing is very obvious, but also painting and making music has a strong, very strong primordial storytelling feature, or not feature, but what's the word? Aspect, yeah, element. It's very deeply ingrained in the human psyche, in the collective psyche. And on the one hand, I want to break loose of that and not be too constricted and confined, especially when it comes to music. About, okay, you have these, classical, it's going in that direction, and then you know what to expect, and there's going to be a twist and turn at that point. And same with movies, and when you write a book, right, when you write a novel, to have the classical 3-act structure or 5-act structure, and the Aristotelian principles, and what kind of traits and tropes are you using for comedy, what are you using for tragedy, what are you using for drama, for romance, for, I don't know, science fiction, whatever it is. Really, all these genres have certain pillars, they have certain milestones within their storytelling, and that's really important on the one hand. And on the other hand, you kind of want to break loose of them, right? You want to make it as intuitive, the process of writing, the process of painting, you want to make it as intuitive as possible. With painting, that's way easier, of course, but if you write a book, if you write a novel, and all these screenplay or novel gurus and people who teach the 3-act structure, and really the act structure is really just a gimmick, because it all depends on what steps you put in. There's like people like John Truby and what are the other ones called? Blake Snyder, people like that, Sid Field, who kind of came up with these condensed ideas, or they at least compiled it into their books. And it's brilliant when you read it. It's a few years ago I was digesting all these like screenplay writers you know, the what's the word? The tips and tricks and the mechanics of storytelling, basically, that they teach about. I was really into that, and still right now when I'm talking about it, think I should read up a little bit on some parts. But on the other hand, I also don't want to be restricted by it, right? You want to be, you want to know a little bit about it, not even, you don't even want to know 100% about it, I think, because when you know 100% about it, then it feels like paralyzing. You're just sitting there, okay, every step, every little sentence that you write has to be according to a certain form, or it has to be according to a certain technique. Same with painting, but with painting it's way more directly applicable. It's way more, there's no filter in between. It's super personal, I think. No matter what you paint, really, it's so personal, because your touch, the tangibility of what you put, as soon as you take the brush and you put it on the canvas, or if you take a pencil and you put it on paper, it's super personal. And there's this direct connection between you and the medium. And when writing, sure, it can be more tactile. You can write it with pen and paper as well, or more common, I would say, these days. The highest probability you will type it out on a computer or on a notebook in a word processor, in a text processing program. So Word, something like that, to leave out the fancy pants word. Or you're old school and you still use a typewriter. That's more tangible. That's more direct. There's this sensation on your hands and fingers that you create something that I think for me is personally really important. That's why I also like sculpting, and I should get back to it again, because it's, I think, a year that the last time that I sculpted something with clay, and I definitely want to get back into that. Let me know if you want to see a sculpting process, by the way, if you want to see something about that. I will also try to share something about that creative process and my journey with that. But I have to get back into that, because now I'm focused a bit more on painting again, and music also, of course. But yeah, these things they give you this feedback. There's this very strong sense of feedback, which with writing you also have. You're happy and you can be very fulfilled by just writing your story, writing whatever goes on in your mind and in your imagination, and bringing the characters to life and things like that. That's a lot of fun. There's a lot of joy in that. But there's not this element of direct feedback, because the feedback is usually then from a reader. So if someone reads your story and they like feel the emotional impact of what you wrote, then it's like, oh wow, this actually did something. But with painting, I feel like there's already an emotional reaction from you while doing it. It's like, ooh, this brushstroke was not that good, or this was a satisfying brushstroke. And sure, you can have those moments when you write a script, or when you write a novel or an article or whatever it is. Really, it can be a recipe, and you're like, oh, this is nicely phrased, and you have this giddy feeling of like, ooh, I did something that almost feels like an accident, or almost feels like it's not coming from you, right? It's coming from the higher self. It's almost channeled, or in a stream of consciousness flow state, and you just do that, and I don't know, half an hour or an hour or hours later, you snap out of it and you lean back and you're like, wow, this is actually cool. I'm proud of that. I'm happy with that. That's such a nice feeling. Everyone, I think, wants to get into that flow state. That's one of the goals of humanity, I think, unconsciously, is to get into that creative or mental, psychological, emotional flow state where you almost forget about time, space, you forget about the body, you're just a little bit somewhere else, right? You forget about day-to-day problems and pains and whatever to-do lists are on your mind, or whatever things have to be done around you. Yeah, so that's definitely possible with writing a lot, to get into the flow state. But I feel like the feedback loop is way different than from painting, and from making music also. Once again, making music, especially if you do it with a digital audio workstation like I do, and with a keyboard that you connect to the computer, to then you have this. You're composing and you're repeatedly listening to what you do. So you're making something. Let's say you play a little tune on the keyboard, and then you press the play button. You press the stop button. You repeatedly like loop it. You listen to it repeatedly. Like, okay, how does it feel? Is it rhythmically good? Do I like that sound? Is it too loud? Is it too quiet? How are the dynamics? How is it basically interlocking with the other elements that you recorded? And then also, besides the recording, to be honest, I have a lot of parts in my music that are just too quick for me to play on the keyboard. So you basically draw it in. They call it programming, but I wouldn't call it programming. I would call it writing or drawing. In basically the notes into the program, so that you can then assign certain instrument, and then you mix that instrument, you bend the shape of the sound, and you bend it to your liking. And it's a long process, and it's a very sounds like a very repetitive process, because you have to keep coming back to listening what you do, and to judging it in the moment. But it's that's what I love so much about it. It's not this judging of like, oh, intellectually, is this correct? Sure, you can say, okay, is this harmonically the best option? Is this like, music theory wise, is this the best way to go? But I know just a little bit of music theory, and the amount of music theory that I know is enough for me to get to get along with the program, and to get along with composing music in this way. Of course, I want to continue learning a bit, but at the same time, I'm just like a little child, in a candy store, trying out different instruments, trying out different soundscapes, and with the painting, the same thing, trying out different colors, and I just can't contain myself. Sometimes it's really okay. I could sit down for 2 or 3 hours now and learn about it, which I sometimes try also with tutorials, but then I get so distracted, or so I don't know, so many other ideas come to mind, that I just want to start it. You just want to start a project, and you just want to continue and follow through with a project without spending too much time in the book, like just reading or looking at tutorials. And this passive learning is like learning by doing. That's the best thing. So if you sit down at a piano, I never had classical piano training or anything, I'm also not sight reading. I have to get into that. I really want to learn how to sight read, or how to at least read a little bit more fluent the notes on paper, because I'm very, very, very slow with that. But for now, it's okay. I try not to judge myself too much with that. I did in the past a lot. I judged myself, and I felt bad about it, and but still I achieved so many things besides all these obstacles, and when playing the piano, I started, I think, 8 to 9 years ago, and it's not for me like that I sat down and I was training or practicing or anything. To this day, I don't know how to practice. I don't know what practice is like, because I'm just doing it when I feel like it, and I'm just following through with it when I feel like it. And it sounds very whimsical, but I'm just inspired to make music and not practice. And maybe I should practice more. That's definitely not a bad idea. But still, that would be my approach and my recommendation, whatever feels right to you. But when you want to play piano, the most fun thing is when you walk up to it, you just sit down and you put your hands on the keys, and you just press some random buttons. You just some random keys. You press some random keys, and you see what's the sound like. How does the sound make you feel? And then you try a different combination, and then you switch the hands. Maybe then you cross the hands, and maybe you, I don't know, put an elbow on the keys or something like that. Or maybe you make a swooping motion with the back of your hand over the keys and see how that sounds like. Maybe this will hurt a little bit on the nails, but still, this is all an experience. This is all tactile. A tactile experience, and a sound experience, and an experience of the heart. And I think it's a heart opener. Music is a big, big heart opener. So is painting. So is everything that we do creatively. And I hope so, to some degree, that is also the case with my videos and my content, that it can help you to reignite a fire inside of you, that it can help you to gain a certain level of trust in your own essence, in your own being, and to uplift you and give you joy. Okay, so this painting is about to be wrapped up. Not wrapped up literally in a package or something, but just finished. So here I'm painting the leaves. Yeah, I think I just added these yellowish highlights on the leaves. At first I was like, this is not a good idea. Immediately regretted it. But then afterwards I was kind of happy with it. I painted over it, again more making it a little less yellowish. Also in this camera I think it looks more stark, the contrast, than it actually is. Yeah, from this side view. But at the end you will see the finished painting anyway. Without any further thoughts or things to talk about for this video now, I will leave you alone in silence with this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a lovely day. Bless you, and see you next time.